Neighbors, how are you this evening? If you could start finding your way to a seat, preferably one that is a little bit away from other people, so that we can be, yes, and one that's not occupied. That's also a good thing to remember. We're going to be starting shortly. Let me check my time. Oh, it is 6:30. Is Conrad close by? Okay. And while Conrad is getting set up, I will remind our speakers, and for some of you, I'm telling you for the first time, that after I do the welcome, I'm not going to come back to introduce each of you, so just make sure you have access to a program, and when the person before you finishes, you get up. Does that make sense? All right, so we're gonna go right in order. Just the main thing you need to know is who's going before me. Okay? When they sit down, you stand up. All right.
Yes, sir. Check. This is a song. I'm a school teacher by trade, and as Cliff and I were having a conversation, he asked to share a song. Wrote this song about 5 years ago after a hard day in the classroom called Heavy. It seems it speaks to the present situations of what's going on in our communities across the country. So we want to lift one another up here at the Doyle Center this afternoon. Go ahead. Oh, this life can get heavy. Oh, it's so heavy. Sometimes, if not most of the time. Well, this life can get heavy. Oh, so heavy. Sometimes. Blue collar, white collar, oh, no collar, one and all. We all try not to fall. But I hang my head down and cry. Well, eat no sleep, or no money have I none. We just a working in the rain and the sun. You gotta feed the family, love the family, hold the family, know the family. Well, this life can get heavy. Well, so heavy. Sometimes, if not almost of the time. Well, this life can get heavy. Oh, it's so heavy sometimes. Go ahead. Not in the east or baby in the west, where the north's too cold, oh, the south's too wet. Just lay me down, oh, below the blue and gray. All the people say, you gotta love the family, feed the family, know the family, hold the family. You gotta love the family, feed the family, hold the family, love the family. Well, this life can get heavy. Well, so heavy sometimes, if not most of the time. Well, this life can get heavy. What's so heavy sometimes? Hey! Well, Father, won't you tell me what to do? Well, this life you and me are through. Well, I hang my head down and cry. Oh, brother, won't you send me on my way? All the children say, you gotta love the family, feed the family, hold the family, know the family. You gotta love the family, feed the family, hold the family, grow the family. Well, this life can get heavy. Well, so heavy, oh, sometimes, if not almost of the time. Oh, this life can get heavy, oh, so heavy sometimes.
Good evening again. My name is Lorenzo Watson. I'm an employee here at the Doyle Community Center, and I want to officially welcome you here to the Doyle Community Center. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So this evening we are coming together to lament the condition of our world. We're coming to make pleas of solidarity and to pray for the strength, the faith, and the love that we so desperately need. Indeed, like it said in the song, this has been quite remarkably a heavy time. We think back to the beginning of the pandemic and how that separated us, being such a social society, needing community touch, needing to be with our loved ones, and we had that to come in and to pull us apart and to wreak havoc on our economy. And then we had another pandemic to show its ugly head. And this time it came in the form of the murder of George Floyd. And that murder ignited a global movement for justice and solidarity. But it wasn't just about that murder. That moment reminded us of an EMT worker who was killed in her sleep. Her name was Breonna Taylor. It reminded us of a young boy who was killed while playing with toys. His name was Tamir Rice. It reminded us of some church-going friends who wanted to have prayer but were massacred. Today we just call them the Emmanuel Nine. So this evening we lament not just one event, but the ongoing environmental conditions that permit such sin to continue. That's what we lament. We lament the deep and the festering wounds of racism in our hearts and in our souls. We lament those sins that remain unknown but are forever felt. This evening we lament, but we also hope. And in response to such atrocities, we've asked individuals from our community to come together to help us process, to help us grieve, to help us lament. Some of them will give remarks, some will sing, others will dance, but together they will help us to begin to heal from the evils that plague us. Amen? And with that, I invite the Reverend to give us the invocation. And then, like I said before, for each person, see your place in the program and come as the proceeding person sits down. Thank you.
Grace, peace, and love from God our Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. Before we begin our collective prayer, I want to ask you to look around. Look around this pavilion. Look into the faces of the people that are sitting beside you, in front of you, behind you. We have one thing in common. We are here because we've been touched, because we feel, because we are concerned about life, the sanctity of life, the preciousness of life. And we're here because we made a conscious decision that we want to make a difference in this world in which we find ourselves. Join me if you will as we pray. Also, that merciful God, we come today as one people for one purpose. We felt the collective stain of racism, segregation, and the institutions that harbor, teach, and perpetuate these evils. You've heard the collective sigh that has come up from this world as our young people took to the streets in protest powerful scene that was played out around the world. One of our brothers, one of our neighbors, one of our friends. Life was taken with reckless disregard. We entreat you now, Holy Spirit, as you have indicated to us that you are present in the hearts of all of those who voice the injustice that we continue to suffer as a people. Grant us now a sense of purpose, the strength, the guidance, the wisdom, to understand that collectively it is us who must make the change. We must be the change that we desire. We must choose to live in peace with our neighbor. We must join together our forces and our intent to change the laws and institutions that make this way of life possible. So we pray now, not only for this community that is gathered here today, but all those across the globe who have joined forces to bring an end to these institutions. Give us grace, mercy, and understanding. Bind us together as one heart, one mind, and one people. In the name of Jesus Christ, your Son and our Savior, we pray. Amen.
Good evening. We've all seen the signs. We've heard the phrases of George Floyd, "I can't breathe." In our minds, we have replayed the vision of death that was played out before our very eyes. In our hearts, collectively, we have felt the loss. We are praying for healing, and we have faith that our prayers will be answered. This evening, I would like to get from "I can't breathe" to "breathe on me." This evening, I'd like to get from "I can't breathe" to "I can breathe." I'd like to get from "I can't breathe" to "let us breathe together." Together, God, you and us, working together, we will be able to make a change in a world where we will all be able to breathe together. I wish by golly I could spread my wings and fly and let this grounded soul be free for just a little while. It'd be like eagle's wing. They ride upon the wind. It'd be the sweetest taste of freedom for my soul. And I'd be free at last. Free at last. Great God Almighty, I'd be free at last. Oh, I'll be free at last, free at last. Good God Almighty, I'll be free at last. To let my feelings lie where harm cannot come by, and hurt this always hurting heart that need to rest a while. It'd be like eagle's wing. They ride upon the wind. It'd be the sweetest taste of freedom for my soul. And I'd be free at last. Free at last. Good God Almighty, I'd be free at last. Oh, I'll be free at last. So free at last. Good God Almighty, I'll be free at last. Peace.
Amen. I will be reading to you the 46th number of Psalms. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. And that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Come behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and uttereth the spear in thunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah.
I was born by the river in a little tent in oh, just like that river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. It's been too hard living that I'm afraid to die. See, I don't know what's up there beyond the skies. It's been a long time coming, a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. If I go to the movies and I go downtown, somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long, yes it has, long time coming, a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me believe. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long. But now I know I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
My name is Lois Shaw, and I'm the facility manager here at the Doyle Community Center. Several years ago, I was a board member in an organization here in town. And at one of our quarterly luncheons, the theme was connecting lives to resources. Connecting lives to resources. And each of us in attendance was given an extension card as a reminder. And being a community organization, there were many resources in town that we could help people to connect to, like CPS, Texas Department of Human Services, Adult Protective Service, Child Protective Service, and many more. We were minded to help our fellow men. Now, I'm not plagiarizing on this idea from someone else, but I was deeply moved, and I kept my extension card, and I kept it right next to my bed in the nightstand drawer until last year at Christmas time. I needed an extra extension cord and I took it out. But I have always been very passionate about helping others, and if I couldn't help, I would try to find someone that could help. And so helping others is just a part of my makeup. But today, 155 years, June 19th, when Juneteenth was started, we still haven't reached the mark of where we need to be as a community. And I'm not just speaking of the Doyle community, because that's a section of town, but I'm talking about the Kerrville community at large. We haven't connected yet. And not only in Kerrville, as has been mentioned before about all of the things that's going on and all of the things that have taken place, there's an unrest. And we need to bring it together. And I just want to say before I take my seat, connecting to resources. No, what we need to do as people of Kerrville and all over the world, there is a greater power that we need to connect to. And this greater power, white, black, brown, it doesn't matter about the color if we can all connect to that one great resource. That one resource. What a wonderful world it would be.
Good evening. My name is Katie Gibbons. In February of this year, I started working as the project manager for the Hope for Health initiative here at the Doyle Community Center. As I look out and see so many familiar faces gathered here tonight, my heart is full. At the same time, my heart is broken. On May 26th, Clifton came into work and wanted me to read a poem titled I Too that he wrote. As usual, I was moved by his writing, but wondered what prompted the poem that he said was going to go to the local newspapers. I had not yet heard about what happened to George Floyd. As I listened to him explain what had happened just 24 hours prior, I felt pain. I cannot stand here tonight and tell you I understand. I don't. What I can tell you from the bottom of my heart is that I'm grieving with you, and that my experience in the last 6 months at Doyle has been nothing short of life-changing. The Doyle community is the true meaning of community and love. Again, I don't understand, but I stand with this community, and I look forward to many, many more years of giving 150% of my heart working with our team to revitalize the Dual neighborhood. I would invite you to call any one of our team members to learn more about Hope for Health and what we're doing. We are here to serve the community. Thank you to my amazing team, Clifton, Karen, Lois, Lorenzo, Lala, and Yolanda for asking me to speak and giving me the incredible opportunity to lead. I am honored to be here in this place, in this time. Thank you.
I want you to notice, I'm not going to preach, I want you to notice how you started smiling, how you felt a sense of joy. I want you to notice how you let all that stuff from way back when, from the forefathers, you let it go, and you're in the now and you're pressing towards tomorrow. Not going to be easy, but it can be done. Because my word teaches me that with God, all things are possible. It's even possible that I'll play this song right.
first the Doyle School Community Center just for this opportunity to be part of this program. And I found out something really interesting yesterday. I found out that nobody ever heard of Juneteenth that Donald Trump mentioned. And I just think it's amazing that we can have this kind of turnout since y'all didn't even know about Juneteenth until the president mentioned it yesterday. So thank you for, I guess you're all his Twitter followers and y'all found out that Juneteenth existed, so thanks for coming out. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's the first thing I thought about when I heard about George Floyd. When Sir Edmund Burke said that all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, I thought about George Floyd. See, George Floyd is unfortunately not the last, but one of the latest names of a black man who got killed by police. But what if good men, good people had done things back in 1993? Why 1993? Almost this identical thing happened in Minneapolis in 1993. A black man had a policeman kneel on his neck until he died. And there were protests then like there are now. But what I'm saying is that not enough good people realize that nothing was not an answer. What if back in 1993, the all NFL team had done a video and sent it to Paul Tagliabue and said, you have to do something about systemic racism? What if the politicians back in 1993, whether you were local or federal, what if you had stood up and said, we need to do something about policing? I suspect if that had happened back in 1993, none of us would have ever heard of George Floyd. Just 2 years ago, Philando Castillo was shot not far from where George Floyd was killed. There were lots of protests, but not enough good people realized that doing nothing was not an answer. And it's gone on and on and on again with Laquan McDonald, Eric Gardner, Tamir Price, Michael Brown, and on and on and on. Most of you have heard of Robert Gates. Robert Gates used to be the defense secretary in the Obama and in the Trump administration. And he said something on NPR that I thought was really precious. He said, there comes a moment when things become possible, and people ought to seize the moment when it presents itself. This is such a moment. So why is this moment different? This moment is different because of a video that lasted 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And if it's really true that one picture is like 1,000 words, a 500-second video is like 1,000,000 words. And I'm only saying this because I know there's at least 2 preachers in the audience, but in the whole New Testament, there's less than 200,000 words. How powerful can 1,000,000 words be? What's different about this moment, the protest, and whether Miami or LA or Boston, the protest continues. And much more importantly, I believe, the protests were diverse. Just like this audience here, the protesters looked like America. Thank you. You see that, BK? Somebody really wants to hear what I have to say. I think it's important to notice that the protesters looked like Americans. And it's hard to dismiss them as the other when they look like America. The difference is that good men and good people this time stepped up and stepped out. 12 of the most popular young NFL superstars risk reputation, risk endorsements. To say to the commissioner of the NFL, you have to do something about systemic racism. And the unbelievable news is, he did. He did it within 24 hours. He did it with conviction, and he did it without ambiguity. Sometimes all it takes is good people to step up and step out. This time is different because a 500-second video can't be dismissed. How horrendous that was, how awful that was. You can't dismiss it like you can 14 seconds of grainy shootings that we've seen in the past. That 500 seconds was a powerful statement. This is different because the blue wall in Minneapolis, Minnesota, cracked. 14 of the fellow officers of the guy that put his knee on George Floyd's neck signed an open letter and saying that it was unacceptable. I don't know if you read that, but if you don't think I'm telling the truth, go read that. 14 of his fellow officers, active duty officers, not retired people that had nothing to lose, wrote a public letter. That's why this moment is different. Governor Abbott, even my best buddy Ted Cruz, all came out and forcefully said how horrendous this act was. You have national politicians on both sides of the aisle now talking about changing policing. The Republicans in the House are getting ready to come out with a bill that will, among other things, make a policeman's record follow him, state by state, city by city. And it may not seem so important, especially for those of you who are professionals, and your record follows you everywhere you go. If you're a teacher, your record follows you everywhere you go. If you're a nurse, your record follows you everywhere you go, but not if you're a policeman. And the reason that's important, I'm going to tell you about an incident you may not know about. But just this year in February, there was a young black man, 17 years old, killed by a policeman in a small town north of Madison, Wisconsin. There wasn't a lot of protests, mainly because there was no video, and mainly because the shooting just did not seem horrendous. But what people found out later is that this officer had been on the job in this community for 5 years. And this was the third person of color he had already shot. He had also left 2 other small communities where there was no record of what his discipline had been. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I want to close with a personal story, a couple of personal stories. But before I do, Where's David? David Knight, where are you? He's still here. I want to make it perfectly clear that Fred Gamble has a very good relationship with local law enforcement. I know both district judges personally, first name basis. I know both district attorneys personally. I know David. I know Rusty. As a matter of fact, I got to give Rusty a shout out. I actually sent Rusty an email from Mo Ranch because we were having trouble with one of our neighbors. And Rusty went out there personally and handled it. And then called me and said, Fred, this is what I did. Shouldn't have any more trouble. Oh yeah, and here is my cell phone number if you need me again. I think that's a good relationship. But I have to tell you this. Before I leave the house every morning, I tell my son, do not leave this yard. You'll pick up the mail, you'll pick up the trash. Do not leave this yard. A lot of people know Preston. He was outside our house, still on my property, doing his Ninja Warrior thing. And some white lady driving through the neighborhood that didn't live there called the cops. My good neighbor Elodia was there. She decided to step up and step out and protect Preston. All we need is good people to do something. And not long ago, BK was taking Preston to lunch. And as autistic kids will do, he gets in a routine. He doesn't go out the back door, which is where she was parked. He goes out the front door, runs around the house, jumps in the car. BK drives a half mile, gets pulled over. She was told that another officer had said that she didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign outside her house. He just wanted to talk to Preston because he saw a young black man running for no apparent reason. If y'all know Preston, he runs everywhere he goes. And I think about that, and I think how fortunate I am that it was BK in the car. Good-looking, professional, articulate, young black woman. He didn't say anything. I worry, what if it had been me in the car with Preston? Or worse yet, what if it had been my nephew, who's 6'4", 22 years old, is a dead ringer for Colin Kaepernick. I get tired of having to tell Preston that every morning, but I'm afraid not. There was a guy who was a spokesman back in Germany in the 1930s. And he wrote something that I'll never forget. He said, they came for the socialists. And I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist. And they came for the unionists. And I didn't speak up because I wasn't a unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for me. And there was no one else left to speak up. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. But good will triumph over evil. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I'm going to go a different direction. I know the power of lament, Lamentations, Book of Lamentations in the Bible, the Psalms, including laments, Jeremiah, other places. But I want to talk tonight briefly about how good things can come out of bad. And God can bring renewal out of tragedy. Let me say, by the way, I'm going to be real careful about time. Clifton told me I had 5 minutes. I am a Baptist preacher, and that is a hard thing to do. Weekly's already shaking his wads. See? All right. Let me talk a little bit as mayor. As mayor, one of the things I deeply desire and work on is that there is a greater level of trust in the community. Trust for each other, trust overall. Why? Because it is vital and critical, and the reality is it leads to security. When people have a sense of security, they can let the breath out, let the shoulders down, and say, this is a good place. I want people to say of Kerrville, this is a good place. And you know what? Remember the end of the Pledge of Allegiance? With liberty and justice for all. All is a very important word. But when there is trust, when there is security, you begin to see the potential of other things happening. One is people getting real creative about trying things and finding new ways to do things and finding ways to make a difference. One of the ways that I want to mention tonight, and Lorenzo and I have talked about it, I've talked just yesterday to Corey Vann. Corey is a black man from Delaware. He's head of the environmental services at the hospital. But Corey was talking to me about the power of mentoring and his concern and interest about mentoring youth and young adults in our community. And he told me an experience out of his own life. Today I was having lunch with Pat Murray, that was the CEO of the hospital. Pat and I were visiting. We mentioned somebody that we both know who's there at the hospital. And this is a woman who grew up in a migrant family, going across the country, picking the crops and that kind of thing, but they were for a time in Junction. Years ago, there was a rancher who was running a youth program in Junction. He saw this woman's potential and the opportunities that she could have, and he began to mentor her and work with her, eventually getting her into Baylor University and the financial aid in order to do it. And she has been in our hospital for years. But one of the things Pat says, Bill, not only was she mentored, she mentors one after another, bringing folks along and helping them go from point A to point B and get the training and education that is needed. Now, another thing that I see when things are really going well in the community is that you have people stepping up to make a difference. Lois talked about that a while ago. Stepping up, and a number of you have, and really saying, I want to make a difference. I want to do something. Let me tell you this. In about 2002, we had a meeting up here at Carver Park. We had just completed a survey asking 3 questions. What do you like about this area? What are your hopes and dreams of this area? And 3, what do you see as greatest needs? And Loretta was in on that, Lois was in on that, Elia was in on that, and there are more. Sheila, I think, and Lillian. What did I say? Loretta. I've been talking about Loretta to some folks lately. Thank you. All right. You know, by the way, Lillian Warren retired after 30-something years at Avery's, James Avery Craftsman, and she was head of shipping. And I just think that's significant. But okay. But we were up at Carver Park. We were talking about how can the community, this community, be stronger and make a difference in the lives of more people. Now, there were several things mentioned, but one of those that was mentioned by Itasca Wilson, who was here at the Doyle School forever, along with her husband. And Itasca said, I've always wanted us to have a garden club or a beautification committee, and we could recognize the prettiest yard of the month and that kind of thing. It never happened. But what I'm thinking is, it could still happen. That and so many other ways to make a difference in this community. Now, I'm going to close with this. By the way, if the Lord puts it on your heart about mentoring, I hope you'll let me know. And then I'm going to say, you can tell Lois about the garden club, because I don't know anything about that. Okay, but I heard a pastor from Detroit, Michigan, Heyman Cross. And here's what he said. And I just read this passage in Mark 2 this morning. He was talking about those 4 guys that took a paralytic friend and lowered him down through the roof where Jesus was teaching and preaching, but it was so crowded you couldn't get in. And he said, do you know who those 4 guys were that took him up on the roof and let him down through the roof to Jesus? It was the initiator, the investor, the implementer, and the intercessor. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what, if we had those 4 working on mentoring, if we had those 4 working on different projects here, we could see a difference and a stronger community. Thank you.
Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to the King. Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't face what's left to do. Truth is, I'm weak, no strength to fight, no tears to cry, even if I try. But still my soul refuses to die. One touch will change my life. Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. my offering.
I honor my ancestors who have come before me, those who were not given the mic to speak. I honor those who stood on this ground Thank you. Thank you to my sister who sang Change Don't Come. Thank you to my brother who just ministered the heart of God as a bleeding heart. The truth is, lament will continue to happen until Fred, who I call Uncle Fred, and Aunt BK don't have to say to their son, don't leave the yard. The truth is, lament will continue to happen until my mother doesn't feel like she has to call me at the end of every day to hear my voice, to make sure that we are still alive. The truth is, lament will continue to happen until my mother-in-law doesn't have to tell me and my husband to be careful what we say to those people, because they will kill you and no one will care. We are lamenting because our hearts are broken. When this vigil was planned, the latest name was George Floyd. We cannot keep up with the names because they come so quickly. When is the last time you have had to say to a child that their father will not come home because someone thought it was okay to choke the life out of them for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? When is the last time you have had to say to your child, don't leave this yard? When is the last time the police have been called on you for running to your car? When is the last time you have been told to shut up because you sound too educated for your own good? When is the last time you have been told or asked, how did your skin get that black? These are not far removed, friends. These are questions and quandaries and things that I have heard since June 19th, 2019. So what changed in my life then? I moved to Kerrville, Texas. I make no apologies for the education that my grandparents ensured that I have as they sharecropped land that belonged to them but was stolen from under them. I make no apologies for that. I do not apologize for uncles who worked and served in our U.S. military to ensure that I have money to attend college. I make no apologies for the ancestors that have toiled the road and paved before me so that I could be here today. Thank you, Reverend Noah, and thank you, Reverend Diggs. I do not apologize. I pray because we are a hopeful people and we know no other way. The prayers that I pray are an inheritance. It's as deeply rooted as racism. So I was asked here to pray today, so I better get on with the request. I will quote in prayer Miss Marion Wright Edelman, who has worked her life on behalf of children. God, we thank you for this time of challenge, change, struggle, learning, witness, and action for those of us who are nice and good and content. You counseled us to take care that we not despair. Help us care for ourselves. And that it is not the will of you, O God, for us to be lost. Find us wherever we are. Help us, O God, to overcome our selfishness. Oh, we can be selfish. Our greed, our political and personal jockeying, our individualism, our organizational agendas, our need to be first right, our need to be recognized, our need to be centered when it ain't about us. Help us to be humble, like the child that you promised was the greatest in heaven, because this child humbly came before you. Now last, oh God, I realize that you did not call us to be happy, so help us be hopeful. I realize that you did not call us to power, for you hold the power. So let us find your peace. I realize that you called us maybe not to win, so help us work. I realize that you may not have called us to succeed, so help us serve in a way that brings glory to you and dignity to our black bodies and the brown bodies who are locked still in cages. Help us, God, to see you in every face that we look in. To look into the face of individuals and see their soul that you breathed into and thus created. We are your precious creation. So help us. Don't give up on us, even if we give up on ourselves, because it is hard. And I am tired. And I am weary. And you are God. Amen.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Coach Pfeiffer for asking me to make some closing remarks for you all today. So it's an honor for me to be here, not just to celebrate Juneteenth as freedom, but also to recognize that we all have a lot more work to do. If we're going to see a paradigm shift now and in future generations when it comes to racism and bias. Since this is a prayer vigil of sorts, I'd like to say a few words about our Maker and our relationship to Him and our neighbors. We're all made in God's likeness. If someone demeans others, they demean Jesus Himself. It's time to lay down hate and anger. There's a judge, and there will be justice, a reckoning, but it's not for us to judge others. Only God is the judge of our lives. Jesus came to earth to bring a message of love for the human race. And yes, most certainly, for Black lives that matter. Let us be an example of no more hate, no more deceit, no more jealousy, no more grudges, no more disrespect, and no more discrimination. Let us begin anew the process of forgiveness. We can do this if we turn our attention away from what others may have done to us to what Jesus did for us. Kerrville and the Doyle community, I think, in fact, have a bright future. We're already starting to see some physical changes in the neighborhood, and more are on the way. We're also seeing the impacts from new programs that you've heard about offered by the Doyle School Community Center and the Build Health Initiative. Your city council and I are committed to the new community-based plan called the Doyle Area Development Plan that was developed just this last year. And I could not be more excited about the changes we are beginning to see in this 20-year plan. This center, the nearby churches, the Glory Gardens are beacons of hope, not just for the Doyle community, but for all of Kerrville. And I invite all of us to build on this, to stay the course, and keep the fresh momentum for positive change. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and God bless Black lives as we commemorate Juneteenth. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for being so attentive. One announcement is that immediately following this, we will have music being played, so if you would like to stay and to listen, you can do that. It'll be an opportunity to sort of reflect on what you've heard and also to enjoy some good music. And I want to leave you with just a couple of comments, nothing too extensive. But one of the things that often burdens my heart is that we tend to have this rush past lament, right? To rush past the pain, the grief. But sometimes you just have to sit in it, right? Sometimes you just have to be there, right? We can even take example from the biblical text, Jesus Christ. He didn't die and get up immediately, but there was a Saturday. There was a Saturday when the disciples had to sit and to reconcile what does life mean in light of the brutal beating that our master just took. And so sometimes these pains force us into necessary and reflective moments. There's another thing that I want you to remember as we depart, is that as a community, we have the opportunity to tell and to live a new story. We don't have to succumb to what's in the media. We don't have to succumb to the stereotypes that we may harbor within us, but we can tell a new story. And that begins with the realization that our story, our united story, doesn't begin with George Floyd, right? Our united story doesn't begin with the transatlantic slave trade. It doesn't begin with the rise of Europe. Our story doesn't begin with the beautiful plains on the African continent. In fact, our story, it was probably impossible to trace the origin of our story to a place, but you can find it in a phrase. And that phrase is this, that in the beginning, God. In the beginning, God. Not in the beginning racist, not in the beginning murder, not in the beginning doubt, but in the beginning, God. And as a part of this story, we realize that God found within himself to create an image. And God called it humanity, and it was good. God created male and female in the image of God, and it was good. And so, like we were just reminded of, we became that imago Dei, which is translated image of God. And so when we exist in the collective, as a community, when our black residents in Kerrville, and our Latino residents in Kerrville, and our white residents in Kerrville are coming together, united, we are what some call the thumbprint of the divine. That is our story. And if we hold to that story, that in the beginning, God, we can say, as Paul said, that despite what happens in the world, I have this one thing that I remain confident, that he who has begun a good work in me is faithful. Aren't you glad it doesn't depend on us? Aren't you glad it doesn't depend on me, because I get angry? I heard one person say that we should be grateful that black people are asking for equality and not revenge. Aren't you glad that it is not in our hands? But if we can reorient our narrative and find our way back to in the beginning God, then we, Kerrville, can tell a new story. A story that can be read by the nation and by the world. A story of hope, a story of courage, and a story of love. So I hope that you've heard something that causes you to reflect tonight. I'll say it again, there will be music for you to listen, an opportunity to commune with one another in a socially responsible way. But God bless you all. Thank you for coming.